Accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the clients and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
I've got some great news for Football Nation Radio listeners. Our supportive partner, Northern Motor Group, is offering $250 off any in-stock vehicle this end of financial year. That's if you take delivery before the 30th of June. With 8 big car brands, MG, Nissan, Kia, Isuzu Ute, Jeep, Ram, Samsung, Peugeot and Pacific Caravans, it's literally a one-stop shop for all your driving needs. Plus, with over 150 quality pre-owned vehicles, Northern Motor Group really does have your next vehicle purchase ready and waiting. Don't wait. Visit www.northernmotorgroup.com.au today. They're in Grimshaw Street, Bundoora, and tell them George sent you. LMCT 6595.
Pickett, she lays it off to Teresa Polias. It's an absolute peach. Is driving. What a hit from Matilda Reyes. Wow. And Sam Kerr has a hat-trick.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Radio Dub here on FNR, and an interesting week of NPL Victoria Women's Football and obviously the Nike FC Cup as well. Lucky enough to be joined. I'm Pokuah Frimpong. I always forget to mention my name. This is weird. Maybe, I don't know what it is. Why do I just keep forgetting my name? I just people assume because I read. No, just because I always just assume people read like the description of the episode.
They don't know who you are. Why are they here?
No, that's not what it is.
Yeah.
It's more a case of if you're not reading the description before a show, it feels a bit strange. You must
imagine if you lived your life like that. You just click on things without reading what they're about.
Yeah,
it's
a bit strange.
It's an adventure every time.
Exactly. But that voice that you are hearing is Oscar Rutherford, who joins me every week here on Radio Dub. Oscar, how are you, man?
Yeah, I'm all right.
That's good.
All right. I'm surviving, getting through. It's cold, isn't it?
It's so bad.
So cold.
I went outside and because we're going to talk about one of the games we're going to talk about is the Bulleen Box Hill Nike FC Cup game, which is probably a great place to start. But when I was walking from my car to the commentary box, because lucky enough, because when you're with Nick DeBino, you get the box. You don't have to stand outside in the cold like a peasant.
Yeah.
So
like we did a couple of weeks ago.
A couple of weeks ago for like 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, exactly. The whole day. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So as I was walking, I was
both
like,
definitely wore long sleeves. Yeah. All right, continue. Sorry.
No, but I swear I thought that my water bottle was going to freeze over. It was so bad.
Yeah?
It was so bad, the Ven. But the Ven is a great venue. So it's football heritage really in Victoria.
Huge.
And it was home to quarter-final matchup between the FC Bulleen Lions taking on Box Hill. An interesting game. And it was a lot of fun to commentate it. And Oscar, were you surprised when you saw the result of the game?
Was I surprised? No, I wouldn't say I was surprised. Bulleen would have been favourites coming into the game. They're at home. They've got better players than Box Hill. That's just true. Even though Box Hill have a couple of really outstanding individuals, Bulleen have been winning a lot recently, as have Box Hill, to be fair. So there was a good amount of hype coming into it. I mean, I just want to say how good midweek football is.
And it's nice, right?
It's the layers to the stories. They keep growing. It's very enjoyable, and it's almost every night at the moment. So I'm not surprised. Alani Anchevsky and Tiff Eliadis with the goals. That's A-League quality that Box Hill only have a couple of players who can call themselves in that category. And Bulleen, we've said it before and we'll say it again, and it'll be hard for them not to succeed this season with the amount of good players that they have.
I think it'll be a massive disappointment and letdown of their quality if they don't win potentially the double. Obviously, it's a lot harder to win the double because they've got their next play South Melbourne on Monday, which is a massive box office game. But as an individual, I was commentating that game with Nick, and I will say, obviously they've got some A-League quality players and A-League players who were the ones to score those goals, But those goals were not A-League standard. Maybe they were. Maybe they were because the dub is so chaotic. But unfortunately for Box Hill, the goals were just the result of it was a result of goalkeeper error. It was Ava Walters was in goals on Tuesday. I forget what day the game was on. Tuesday. And she was replacing Camilleri, who had been dropped after they lost 7-0 to Borondara on the weekend. But I will say, I thought the Box Hill actually started the stronger of the two teams. They were pressing really well and they were making it really difficult for Bulleen to make it out of their own defensive half, and they were struggling a lot. And I thought maybe Box Hill would get, an opportunity to score in the game. And they needed to score first for them to really have a chance in that game, because the moment the Bulleen got ahead, it just felt really, really difficult. And the only reason Bulleen were able to get back in the game was because Box Hill, unfortunately, much with the joy of pressing is also the downside is it's really difficult to maintain that for 90 minutes, let alone 45 minutes. And the moment they just let up a little bit, it gave Bulleen so much room and allowed the likes of Paige Joyce and Tefeliadis to just kind of dictate how the play and the game was going to go. I don't think Bulleen were sensational. I don't think they had to be, but they probably also could have scored more goals because there are a lot of opportunities from Alana Janchevsky also crossing the ball into Tefeliadis, and either somebody was just a little bit offside or the ball was just a little bit too far forward. So it was just an important win for Bulleen and something they needed to get, but I think it's probably Box Hill look at themselves and they're probably the more disappointed in the way in which they lost the game, because they had certainly had their opportunities as well. They just couldn't maintain the tactic that they wanted to employ for the whole game.
Well, it's 5 wins in a row across all competitions now for Bulleen, so they keep on winning. I don't think either of us have been blown away with how they've been getting their wins, but I suppose those cliche in there about winning when you're not at your best, and Bulleen keep finding ways to do that. Of course, they got the win over FE Emerging on the weekend. That again was a tight game that they kind of just squeaked over the line with the 2-1 win, but at the end of the day, and I mean Alana Janchevsky scoring in that game as well, it looks like she's really finding her feet at the moment, Alana Janchevsky, and that's a scary proposition for the rest of the competition.
Yes.
Oh wow.
Oh my God.
Wow, emergency. Pokuah's dying.
Just as I was about to speak about how good Alana Janchevsky is, I almost just died. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
That was so intense.
I know she's good, but I didn't know she had that much of an impact on you. She takes your breath away.
She really does, because she is Bulleen's best player. I don't know if you would have said that maybe at the start of the year or at the start of the season, but she's certainly shown that. I think she scored 7 goals in all competitions so far this season. I think she's only played 7 or 8 games. And she just creates so much. When she's on the ball, even if she's halfway, I'm scared that she's going to score. And that first goal that Bulleen did score was just her being bold enough to take a long range effort that was just miscontrolled by the goalkeeper and got Bulleen to where they need to be. But I think Alana Janchevsky's been the standout player so far in the competition. Obviously, she hasn't been here the whole time, but she's just been so incredible. But a player who was incredible, Sophia Sakalis, she might be the best on-ball player in the entire competition. Okay. Every time she's on the ball, her ability just to get herself out of tight spaces, she's so cheeky in the way she plays. She'll just try things that you wouldn't expect other players to try, and I think she might be the most impressive person to watch week in and week out. Obviously, her team haven't, last couple of weeks haven't been great, but she's just so special.
I wonder if we're seeing kind of the benefits of the extended A-League women's season in the way that the players who played in that competition have been able to have more exposure and more consistent game time at the highest level. And that's allowed them to kind of find this level of consistency and regularity of game, which has meant that there's not the kind of stop-start thing which might have happened in the past. And that's benefited the quality of the NPLW as well, because these players have slotted right back in, picked up where they left off, and are playing at an incredibly high level. And Alana Janchevsky's the clearest example of that with the way she's going about things at the moment.
Yeah, and I can't wait to watch more of her. And it's always nice to watch a player of her quality in the competition. But I think it's this game probably helps us lead into talking about that massive game on the weekend, round 14 of the NPL women's competition between Boroondara and Box Hill.
Sure.
Which is probably the most surprising result, I think, of the whole season. Not the amount of goals in it, but the goals were all for Boroondara, which heading into the weekend I would not have expected. I think I was thinking of that game, I was like, I think Box Hill might win that game. But to lose 7-0 is quite a devastating loss, I would say.
I mean, I'm not sure I would agree that it's one of the most surprising. I agree it was a surprise. I'm not saying I expected Boroondara to win 7-0 against Box Hill, but I think that it was reasonably foreseeable that this game would be chaotic and that it would be hell for leather, both teams throwing everything at the other. And if that, the balance just weighs slightly in one direction, that can allow one of those teams to kind of just run over the top of their opposition. And that's what happened for Boroondara over the weekend. You mentioned it hasn't been a great week for Box Hill. I mean, the game against Bulleen last night, or 2 nights ago, I think it was now, understandable. You recognise that sometimes those things happen, although not easy off the back of conceding 7, also at the Ven against Boroondara. Look, that was some of the best of Boroondara. That's what Boroondara do. That's why they've been so enjoyable to watch and so successful this season. Korea Aquino is a freak, scored another hat-trick.
She's so far ahead in the Golden Boot race. Like, I honestly think it's very difficult for anybody to catch her, even if she stops scoring goals right now.
Just the quality of her finishing is something that is, you kind of, it isn't necessarily incredibly obvious the first time you see her play, but just week after week, she's nailing these finishes that aren't the hardest in the world, but they're low quality chances in theory. And she just puts them in time after time after time. She's just extraordinary. I think it was her second goal maybe where she slides it past the goalkeeper, and it's just this pinpoint accuracy moment where it bounces in off the post. She's just an extraordinary player. I think also huge shout out to Emily Sutcliffe, who I'm not sure if we saw, Pokuah, has scored 2 unbelievable goals. Like unbelievable goals. Like goals of the weekend contenders at least. The second goal is right up there with one of the goals of the season. From long range, looping attempt, which beats the goalkeeper. I mean, the second goal was assisted by a bit of a goalkeeping error. But yeah, it was Boroondara in full flight, and Box Hill were on the receiving end. Yeah,
they certainly were. And I think that's what's been nice about Boroondara is there's so many players that we didn't know about heading into this season that have stepped up, and Sutcliffe is one of those, and it's kind of nice to see with Boroondara particularly. Aquino I don't know if she's the most technically gifted of all the strikers in the competition, but she's certainly the most consistent that we have in the competition right now. And if it wasn't for her, I don't know if Boroondara would be in the situation. But I also think that Boroondara, they play a game style that allows every single player to be at their best. It's a game style that is targeted towards what they are good at and not trying to, it doesn't focus on their weaknesses, and they continually play like that. They're always trying to be on the front foot. And I would say that defensively is their weakness, but they don't play a game style that allows teams that much time and space to put them under a lot of pressure. And when they do, sometimes they are, they're on the receiving end of, some high scoring games, but you take the wins and you take the 3 points and you keep up there near the top of the ladder.
Well, Margot Rabin appears to be finding a bit more consistent game time over the last few weeks, and there's something to be said about the gloved menaces at Boroondara. There's a trend going throughout the team. Margot Rabin wears the gloves often. Christina Hall wears the gloves often. We've seen Korea Aquino.
Are you a gloves person, Oscar?
No, I'm not.
Really? Yeah.
I'm not.
I find it not practical.
I just find it. I don't. It looks kind of weird to me. Just on anyone in the nicest way possible.
You're giving fashion advice now.
No, I'm not. Well, you're right. It probably does sound like that. I shouldn't. That's not what I mean. I'm merely saying that I think I don't know. It's a look. It's distinct, but they're becoming feared at the moment. If I'm lining up on the pitch on the weekend and I see my opponents wearing gloves.
You think they're in for?
Well, I'm going, well, they know what they're talking about. They're the real deal. If you've got the confidence to pull off the gloves, I can only imagine what you can do.
I don't know if anybody's ever said gloves are such a bold fashion statement, but clearly for you they are.
It's striking how much it is a trend within the Boroondara team. I'm saying that there are 3 players who I've seen wear gloves on more than one occasion. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm just suggesting
key to
maybe
their
it's
success.
the secret.
Yeah.
I don't
You're right,
know
you're right.
what the gloves do, but Burundara are getting a lot of good results, and
The magic of the gloves. Not the magic
correlation
of
isn't
the-
causation, but also magic gloves. That's what I'm here to say.
Fair enough. I think it's probably a good place to transition into the other Nike FC Cup game that was on Tuesday night. That was a high-scoring contest.
Yeah.
Certainly end-to-end sort of stuff, and was between Calder United. I was about to say Calder FC, and I was just like, what's about to happen to me? Calder United taking on Heidelberg United, and it ended up, what was the final score in that game, Oscar? 5-2. But it wasn't, the 5-2 was deceiving because it wasn't 5-2, like near the end of the game, it was only 3-2, and I think with Heidelberg trying to press, it just opened up for Calder a lot more, and the scoreline suggests that Calder were more dominant than I think they realistically were in that game.
Yeah, look, that's probably fair. I think that the number of goals don't reflect the quality of attacking moves in the game either. You're right. It was 2-2 with about 15 minutes of normal time left, and I mean to give it the rundown of the game, Calder did open the scoring. Heidelberg hit back about 15 minutes later. Calder went back in front 2 minutes after that, so it's 2-1 at half time. Heidelberg get the equaliser off the back of a goalkeeping error, really. There's a long ball sent up. I think it was by Amir, but I'm not entirely sure. And it slips through Natalie Pichak's fingers.
I don't think Natasha.
Yeah, no, Natasha Dakic hasn't been wearing the gloves. No, that's the other part of the whole glove conversation. I mean, goalkeepers are wearing, I should leave it. I'll park
Let
it
the
or move
gloves
it on.
go,
We'll let
man.
the gloves go.
What does the gloves ever do to you?
So we had this 2-1 lead for Calder. Two of the goals out of those three came from set pieces, which tells you a bit about where we were at. And then there was the goalkeeping error, which allowed Keely Lockhart, with her first touch off the bench, to score the equaliser, kind of out of nowhere. And then right after Lockhart's equaliser, Katrina Nickpour made a late challenge and got a second yellow card. I'm talking literally a minute after Heidelberg have made it 2-2. And so Heidelberg go down to 10 immediately after equalising, and then from there, kind of felt inevitable that Calder would eventually get on top. But look, if we're looking at how the game played out as a whole, the majority of the game was spent with Heidelberg in possession, usually in their own half or on the halfway line, and they weren't really able to generate much. It's tough against Calder. Calder now, particularly that they've got the likes of Alana Cern and Julia Sardo back. Alana Cern actually didn't play a huge role in this game in particular, but I just imagine that the team as a whole just feels a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, when you
Alana
walk
Cern's
into the
back there.
dressing room and you see that Lana Cern's got to play, I just feel like you get like a 10% confidence boost in your side, because she's just so good on the ball and just reading the game as well.
And you combine that with Natasha Dakic, who has had a really good season as well. And ultimately Heidelberg's goals come from a set piece and from a goalkeeping error, which reflects generously on them in terms of the quality of attacks that they created. As you mentioned, a couple of goals at the end. Kiwa Hieda is just extraordinary. She was incredible again. There were two really nice moves from Calder in the game that led to two of their goals. The opening goal came from the goalkeeper, and then Alyssa Smith sends it out, and Kiwa Hieda just the positional sense to know where to be the most dangerous and most effective. She went out there to the right along with Larry Walsh, and they combined to get the goal. Really nice finish from Larissa Walsh as well to get that opening goal. But then also the goal that put Calder back in front to make it 3-2 was this wonderful, it was like semi-transitional, but there were this wonderful chain of passing from Calder that led to Kiwa Hieda being through on the right wing, and then she sent it back inside where I think it was Alexis Mitchell who made it 3-2. So Hieda central to most of what Calder did, and they probably deserved the win in the end, Calder United, because neither of these teams particularly want the ball, and Calder had less of the ball, which meant that the game went their way. And in the end, the red card, decisive. Calder run out 5-2 winners. It is their competition, the Nike FC
It really
Cup.
is, and
I think they're going for a fifth straight trophy this year.
they're going for a fifth straight trophy, and they certainly walk into their next matchup as the favourites, clear and away. They're either going to face either Casey Comets or Essendon Royals, which, if you look at the two semi-final teams you could have faced, they certainly got the easier run, you'd say, because it is a they're not facing another NPL side, which is handy and helpful. And I think Calder have certainly got better in recent weeks, and I like the role that Julia Sato has been playing. I think she's been coming inside a lot more, and they've been utilising her sometimes as a additional midfielder as well. I think that for me, thinking about that game, Heidelberg is... I did the Heidelberg Bayside game on the weekend, and when you were speaking about Heidelberg struggling to get it out of their own half, it's the same thing they really struggled with against Bayside on the weekend as well. As a side that they're trying to play out from the back, and you can know that Jono Clemente is trying to get his side to use that system. They really struggle sometimes, especially if you put them under a little bit of pressure. I just don't think they have enough faith in their system at the moment to really execute it when the pressure is being applied to them. And it allowed Calder, and it has allowed Bayside as well to exploit that and be on the front foot and get the better opportunities, because if you're picking the ball up closer to the goal you need to score at, it makes the chances a lot easier than having to travel the whole length of the field.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you touched on a few things that I think we should talk about. I mean, first of all, the remaining quarterfinal of the Nike FC Cup, that is tonight. Casey Comets and Essendon Royals at
I'm just going to say, go Casey Comets as a proud resident of the Southeast. Go Casey Comets. Fair
enough. You and Georgia Radjic on opposing sides of that. It's the Pokuah Georgia derby at Salandra tonight as Casey play Essendon. And what is a big game for both of those clubs? 7:30 p.m. tonight, Salandra Recreation Reserve. Get down, see some quarter-final action for a dream run in the cup for one of those teams. And then, of course, we've got the more expected teams in South Calder and Bulleen as the other quarter-finalists. Yes, we've mentioned the challenges that Heidelberg have faced, and you've linked that back to the weekend's game where they did lose 3-0 to Bayside. I mean, it says a bit about Heidelberg, but it also says a lot about Bayside, who we've been increasingly getting high on Pokuah, this Bayside team, because they keep going up a level. They keep edging their way forward. They're inside the top 4. They're level on points with South. They're 3 points off the top.
It's warranted. Absolutely warranted. That game on the weekend against Heidelberg, I thought Bayside have been good. But when I remembered as I got to the ground that Kayla Deaver's not going to be a part of the match they scored after getting the 2 yellows the week before, I was like, I don't know if they're going to be able to hold off Heidelberg. Heidelberg are a competitive side. They'll make it difficult. But they just went out there on the front foot from minute go. They was just minute go. Minute go. That's the way we're going. Minute go to minute stop. They were there. Sorry, my brain had 2 different things and just combined them so perfectly. Yeah. And
from the word minute one.
No, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, all right,
you see how I've done that, though?
Yeah, I do.
Thank you. I don't know why you always try to embarrass me when we record this podcast. It's like
I didn't embarrass you because you did that all yourself.
No, but it's crazy that
you said
always,
minute go.
It's crazy how you just go back to these things. It's just wow. You think you do a podcast with somebody, you think they respect you and, we just allow things to be left?
Yeah.
Clearly not.
I'd put my house on you fixing it up from here on out.
Leave me alone.
Yeah.
But what I was saying about Bayside is that midfield composition is one of the best in the competition, because I feel like they understand their roles so well. Meanwhile, Sasaki, I think she's certainly in the race for the gold medal winner this year, particularly with her and Olivia Bomford. Bomford does a lot of the defensive work at times, and we'll do some really nice touches as well. And her link-up play with Sasaki going forward as a creative player. They link up so well, and I just think that this team is balanced with Stina Fogarty at the back, who is underrated as a defender. I think she actually covers a lot of ground and reads the game really, really well in terms of recognising where the danger is and just shutting it down. I think they're just a balanced side that understand what they need to, what their playing style is and what they're good at.
Yeah, well, it looks like they're benefiting from the fact that there's a core of that group which has been together for a few seasons now, and they really look like it in the way that they know what one another are doing, and they know kind of what to expect from each other. And I think that's what makes Bayside's rise even more impressive, is the fact that so much of it's done by players who were there last season and the season before, players who went through those really rough patches. And all of a sudden it's all kind of come together, a few additions to kind of take them to that next level. Your shout for me was Sasaki in the gold medal race. If Bayside continue to perform at the level that they are, if they make finals, or even further than that, then Miwa Sasaki is absolutely right up
scored
there.
a fantastic goal on the weekend. It was assisted by Julia Budiongo, who scored 2 goals on the weekend. And I just, Bayside, they're, for me, at the moment, the most fun team to watch because you know exactly what you're going to get. It's going to be entertaining. They have players that understand their roles. I think the acquisitions of getting Sarah Johnston and also getting Isabella Fernandez in their squad have made them a lot better. Fernandez was playing as essentially as a fullback for Southern United at the start of the year, and now she's playing as a winger. I think she is better suited to that role, and she really has ultimately dominated her direct matchup in that Heidelberg game as well. And it's just a much more balanced front three. They got a lot of pace, but they actually finally getting the ball to those players, whereas last year when you watch them, if they were able to get on the ball, they really struggled to find it, to get it to Budiongo. A lot of their patterns were just send it long and just hope she runs onto it, which they did at times, but they're mixing it up with little intricate passes and actually having some patterns of play that they can repeat and get something out of. And I think that's the thing that's helped them a lot this year.
Well, it's created a really interesting dynamic in the top 4 race going into the rest of the season. I mean, we spoke about Calder, who with those returns from the likes of Cern and Sado look to have balanced themselves a little bit more. They still haven't blown, I don't think, either of us away with the way that they've been playing, but they are just picking up a few more results. Heidelberg's struggling a bit as well. So both of those teams, Calder and Heidelberg, currently outside the top 4. And you've got Bayside, you've got Burundara in there, you've got South, who let's not forget how far they've come.
And they
in
had
the
the bye
space
this
of
week.
season. They had the bye this week. South, whose performances the last few weeks haven't been that good, I don't think. I just like the theory of what I think they're trying to do, and I think at their best, they are probably the best team in this competition. The question of whether they can execute that. And then you've got Berlin at the top, who again, the performances aren't there. It's just sometimes the sheer quality of individuals carries them over.
It helps
the line.
when you've got like 8 A-League women's players, or who've
insane.
at least worn an A-League women's shirt before. And I think I just want to go back to Box Hill really quickly.
Yeah.
That loss to Burundara is a really big blow to their finals ambitions, because they were certainly on the march heading there, and it looked like they were probably going to catch up, but they are now in a place where that big 7-0 loss has not only cost them a goal difference, but those points might be very costly in the end.
8 games left this season, 8 rounds left this season, I should say. And really, almost every team in the comp, we've had really positive things
Southern
to say
United.
about it at some point. Now, you say that about Southern United.
No, they got their point.
But they got the point on the weekend.
Even with a red card.
They got a point against, it's their second point of the season.
Hey,
it was
I'm happy.
against Alamein. It was at Salandra. They did it at home this time, the first one coming at Knox against FB Emerging. That early goal from, I think it was Rachel Binning, that doesn't make the difference, but it gets them the point. Huge result. Everyone in NPLW's having a turn.
Southeast, I'm happy.
Southeast representation.
Absolutely,
it's through the
Oscar.
roof.
Come on now. No, Southern United, I think for Southern United, they're much like FV, where it's not necessarily about the results. It's just about getting your place to develop and find exactly who they are as footballers. And for me, I think they got better as the year has got along. They were getting some bad results early on. They've certainly settled, and they're not getting beaten as comfortably. Maybe, other teams are getting a lot of possession, but they're not getting sliced open every single time, which is nice to see. And I think it does a lot for the team's morale. And I think Alamein are no easy side to come up against, and to get a point against them, even with that red card, is very impressive.
They're not Alamein, but they haven't been at their best for a little while now. It's, they are that barometer team in NPLW who are always there and always at a decent level and making it tough for you. But just looking back at their recent league fixtures, I mean, they haven't won in the league since back in round 7, and that was against South Melbourne at the end of April. So we're verging on 2 months without a league win for Alamein. And you look at some of those results. I mean, the draw with Southern, the week before that, the 5-0 loss to Calder. It's and the week before that, the 3-3 draw with Preston, which is a bit of a different situation. But they've just lost their way a little bit over the last few weeks. They are heavily reliant on what Sydney Allen brings for them, and she was very much involved in the goal on the weekend as well. But just a little bit of concern at the moment.
Yeah, I think they're also missing the likes of Amy Jackson from last season as well. I think she settled that midfield and allowed it to be a little bit more calm and composed, and they're struggling sometimes to build play, and they're just they're not getting enough runs, out of their players, and even Elena Vatke as well. She's not getting as involved as they would like. That interplay with her and Sydney Allen last season was a lot better. I don't know if it's maybe a case of everyone else is getting better and Alamein have kind of been a little bit stagnant in their progression as a club and their ability to attract those high level players. But it's just they're just kind of floating around in the middle of the pack, which is not really somewhere you'd like to be in this competition.
And I mean, it doesn't get any easier for them this coming weekend when they welcome Boroondara to Dorothy Labour West. So that's another difficult game for Alamein to contend with, and then Heidelberg the week after that. So it's every week feels almost like a tough week at the moment in the competition, which speaks to how exciting it is the way things have gone about. I mean, as much as Calder have been an excellent team for a long time at this level, I think that them falling off a little bit has really paved the way for a much more dynamic and entertaining competition. Other than that, on the weekend, the Friday night game was, we mentioned it before, Bulleen getting the 2-1 win against FE Emerging. So just continuing along their merry way, really, FE Emerging and Southern United, the two sides propping up the league. And I mean, to wrap this up, Pokuah, if we look ahead to what's to come this weekend, we were speaking about Southern. They go to Preston on Friday night, and a big game at BT Connor Reserve. Two teams. I mean, Southern, I think, will back themselves as potentially being able to grab a point from that game as well. But
I also think the Preston, they must be sick and tired of the way their season has gone. I just don't think that anybody at Preston walked into this season thinking this is the way it's going to go, particularly when you're looking at Boroondara and how comfortable it ultimately was for Preston last year to win and get the promotion up into this competition. They were considerably the better side out of them and Boroondara and Southern, and it's just a little bit. It's disappointing to see how their season has gone, particularly with the acquisitions they've got as well. So I think, obviously, as you said, as we mentioned, they are still in this race to make finals. They obviously are going to need a lot of results to go their way as we get closer to the end of the season. But at some point, it's got to turn it around. Like, they can't keep just, the results they keep getting.
But here's the thing is the tightness of the competition. They've got a game in hand on most teams around them. If they win that game, which you'd expect them to do against Southern United, even if I do fancy Southern as a sneaky chance of grabbing something from that game, all of a sudden Preston are up into 7th. They're still 6 points outside the top 4, but that feels much more manageable for them. So that'll be interesting to observe. I'm calling the game on Saturday afternoon, Alamein Boroondara. I'm excited for that one. To see
nice, man.
Boroondara in the flesh again and see what they can present against Alamein.
Is that your team at the moment?
Apparently, that's what it feels like. I mean, at the start of the season, I was just all FE Emerging, and all of a sudden I haven't seen FE Emerging for a while, and I was just Boroondara week after week. That game happening just before Bayside play FE Emerging, so Bayside, they'll be heavy favourites to continue their good run. Then on the Sunday, Box Hill Heidelberg,
which is my game.
Which is a game that you're calling.
I'm
Pokuah.
looking forward to it because you know how much I love watching Sophia Sakalas play football, and I want to see if Heidelberg can bounce back. So I'm intrigued for what the weekend holds for me.
Two sides currently just outside that top 4 bubble and looking to break back into it for Heidelberg, for Box Hill to get back on the rails.
And it's also that's another reason why it was so important for Bayside to get the win over Heidelberg, because they were 4th and 5th and on, I believe, the same amount of points. Or it was just maybe about a point difference at the time. But now that Bayside got that win on the weekend, just create a little bit of separation between those two teams.
4 points inside the top 4 Bayside. It's very impressive. But ultimately, Pokuah, the weekend, all roads lead to the Veneto Club on a Monday night as Bulleen Lions play South Melbourne in what is a massive game between two of the top 3 as we speak at the moment. Huge.
Huge. What time is that game?
That's an 8:15 p.m. kickoff at the Veneto Club.
I potentially could be there.
Potentially.
Or I'll be watching from home and enjoing, I believe Georgia Radjic is calling.
I believe so,
game,
Georgia Radjic and potentially Melissa Barbieri as well on the call for that one.
Yeah.
So I would very much be making an effort to get down to that one because it's a huge occasion. South Melbourne coming fresh off the bye, Bulleen top of the league. It's a game which has huge ramifications for who's going to finish on top. We'll see if Boroondara and Bayside can apply some pressure before then.
Did I just get confused the Nike FC Cup fixture with them and the league fixture with them?
What do you mean by that, Pokuah?
Well, because I just said earlier that they're playing on Monday in the Nike FC Cup, which is incorrect. It's the league that they're playing on Monday.
Yeah, well, either way, whether it's the cup or the league, in this case it's a league, I am licking my lips at the prospect of this game.
Really?
I am.
You don't use some like Nivea to got some dry lips, Vaseline?
It's very cold, Pokuah. The lips, they get very dry very quickly.
I'm all about Nivea. So,
yeah?
Yeah, 100%.
Would you recommend it?
Absolutely.
I'm kind of in need of something like that at the moment. Okay,
it's pretty
sure.
good,
So
but
I will pick up some Nivea on my way to the Veneto Club for what will be a sensational night of football.
Well, before we head off, Oscar, just quickly, Matilda squad, provisional squad was announced, 29-player squad for the Women's World Cup. Quick thoughts. Give me, what were the first three things that you thought of, and how are you feeling now after you've got a few days to adjust?
Three things you want from me. Look, well, I will say that there's no real surprises here, Pokuah. I mean, this is possibly the most predictable position that the Matilda squad has been in for a long time. So no major surprises. Many of the players that we expected to see are indeed there. Interesting to see who will be cut before the final squad is submitted. Not sure how I feel about having players who have hardly played for the last 6 months featuring in the squad. I appreciate that there are cultural elements and there's more than just who's on the pitch to picking an effective World Cup squad. But it feels particularly harsh when you consider Holly McNamara not being included. And if nothing else, I mean, we're huge fans of Holly McNamara here at Radio Dub, and not to go too hard too early, but she could be the most talented footballer of this generation of Australian footballers. She's genuinely incredible as a player, and I would love to have seen her just get the experience of being around this group and being in the situation. But then again, this is kind of the end of this cycle, so we'll give these players their chance to run into the sunset. Hopefully, make some waves at the World Cup.
I hope that when I'm sailing into sunset, you won't be doing the speech because it felt intense. But I agree.
Okay, so you simultaneously think I did a terrible job, but also you agree. All right, cool. Now go on.
No, I think that your speech skills as a lawyer are they're fantastic. They're fantastic. No, but what I was going to say is I think that the only surprise for me was Holly McNamara, but I'm also not surprised at the very same time.
No,
I think it's a little bit disappointing that we're heading into a major tournament with players that are injured. I don't think that sets you up for the best chance of winning. I think you need to have, I believe it's 23 players ultimately in the squad. I think they all need to be fit and firing. But obviously some of those players are going to be able to be fit in time, but they also, the likes of Kai Simon, haven't played football all year. So that's, interesting to see if she is in the squad. Does she get minutes, or is she just taking up a spot on the bench? And then if we are doing that, was that a better alternative than someone like Holly McNamara, who has played? But, I'm nervous about the players that will be dropped because it's 6 players. And I think if we take some players who haven't seen the squad as of late, which players who have been playing recently won't make it. And I'm a little bit nervous that some people who haven't got the regular starts but have been in the squads will get cut, even though a lot of us know that they're quality players. And I mainly mean Alex Chidiac. I'm nervous to see if they take her in the tournament. If they don't take her, I might cry in a corner. I'll obviously support the Matildas. I look forward to watching them play, and I hope they win the World Cup. But I am cautiously waiting for the 23 squad announcement, which I think comes out relatively soon, maybe on Tuesday, this next coming Tuesday.
Imminently.
Yeah, it's imminently. Nick Dabano told me, but I've completely forgot. But
look, all these things I think are valid criticisms and are true, but it's kind of, I think we're all, as we say, no one's surprised. This is what we expected to see, and that's what we've got. Yeah,
exactly. Well, that's probably a great place to leave it. Goodbye. I'll be calling, what game will you be calling on the weekend?
Let's talk about this. Alamein Burundara, Saturday afternoon.
Leaving the show. And
cool. Alamein Burundara, Saturday afternoon at Dorothy Lavel West.
Yes, and on Sunday I'll be calling Box Hill taking on Heidelberg. So tune in for that. And thanks for listening to another edition of Radio Dub, and we'll be back for more next week.